Hello, and welcome to the future, the digital version of the digital client worshipping podcast known as the Arena Craft Podcasts. I am one of your hosts, jacking in direct into the Matrix, Arjuna. The other co-host, jacking in, getting used to these new environs after a little time away in Zion. We have co-host of the podcast, CovertGoBlue. What's going on, my friend?
Ready Player 2. God, that sequel book was horrible. We don't need to get into that.
We really don't.
I'm always Player 2 on the podcast though, because you are the architect, you're the originator. But yep, we're going 1,200 years into the future of Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Dude, the last time we talked about Kamigawa Neon Dynasty was right at the start of the Arjuna Awards show, and most of it was gushing about land art. Well, that was just the appetizer, baby.
Oh yeah. That's also like ancient history by now. This is early modern Kamigawa that we're talking about, but now we're getting into the meat. This is like the contemporary business right here. And I've got to say, I am stoked. I love the flavor of this set. Magic in the future, it turns out, is something that I was always hungry for and never realized it. So I think I'm not alone in that opinion. How are you feeling so far, just with the overall future-ness of it?
I've spent a lot of time watching like the reveal stream and stuff with just my jaw like hanging open, like, oh, I want this card in my life. I want this art, and I'm not usually a person who totally gagas over the art, but as I've gotten more into the MTG collecting stuff in recent sets, and I've started collecting like the foil sets, which is a project I'm working on. Now I'm like looking at these and I'm already imagining what it's going to be like to get my, full art foil alternate of many of these cards in the mail, because the art blows me away. The mix of like anime with steampunk with just Japanese culture and what I remember from Kamigawa is, I don't know, it's hitting me in all the like pleasure zones. I'm here for it. I'm along for the ride.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I wasn't around when the original Kamigawa was released, but as a Magic player who enjoys products such as Mystery Booster, I've kind of gotten to see them come back around. Also, getting into Commander has helped me to learn about some of the cards in those previous sets, and I dig it. I am an original Kamigawa fan, and so seeing this stuff come out the second time, it's kind of like when Shadows over Innistrad was released. Like, I got to experience Innistrad myself, like for the first time in an authentic way, and so I'm super hyped to be doing the same thing with Kamigawa.
Yeah, what are we, 20 years removed from Kamigawa? Like,
I mean, geez.
That's most of the boomers from that generation have died off or discovered how to do something besides Magic with their lives. So an entire generation is going to get introduced to Kamigawa. And yeah, especially like Magic was a very different game. I wouldn't call it like the lifestyle brand it is today. So they're pushing it to the max. And we've got cards to talk about, and they look sweet.
Indeed. Yeah. I mean, I'm happy to jump in and just get right to it if you are.
Absolutely. So just kicking it back and forth, like passing a basketball in a drill. I'm going to start the party with... We're going to go to the Planeswalkers that have been revealed just in the last few days. The Planeswalkers, as far as the lore goes, always kind of shape what's going on in the set. There are main characters. They were created to be avatars for the user. And this first one is going to break some hearts. Hearts were breaking all over the world when they revealed this one, because this Planeswalker is Tamio, the completed Sage. And...
Tamio.
Yeah. Completed, spelled Compleated. It is not a typo. It is spelled that way to represent the state of when a Phyrexian reaches like a level of completedness that it is no longer, it is completely a mechanical, like it's all machine taken over and no longer like any living flesh. It's a machine, a soul in a machine body.
Tamio has completed the transition to the metaverse. So that's really what we're seeing here.
Yep. And Tamio, I don't think people saw it coming, man. Tamio's our friend. Tamio helped fight Emrakul on Innistrad. Yeah. Tamio
Plus, she
is
really
smart.
She enjoys a good library. I mean, who doesn't respect that?
Yeah, just a bookworm, but nobody knew. I think that there's still some question. Was this her idea? Is this the doings of another Planeswalker who's in the set? But anyway, this completed card, people are like, card. I feel, honestly, for anybody who is not watching the YouTube video of this, because 1, the art, 2, a lot of words on these cards, as has become the norm. So hang in there. I'm going to try to explain this card. It is 2 generic and a green and a blue and a hybrid green-blue Phyrexian mana.
I never thought I would see them print Phyrexian cards ever again.
Anyway, it is either 4 mana and you pay 2 life, or it's 5 mana and the extra mana is paid with a green or a blue. And this is a 5 loyalty Planeswalker, and it has a +1. Oh, wait, I better give you the downside. So the Phyrexian mana, it now has the completed ability on the card, which represents a potential downside if you pay the 2 life. And the potential downside, if you choose to pay 2 life instead of the mana, is that this enters with 2 less loyalty counters. So you can have a 4 mana Planeswalker with 3 loyalty, or you can have a 5 mana Planeswalker with 5 loyalty. So pretty big difference.
Yeah, just to cut in there, I love this particular aspect of the design of this card. I think that, like, we've seen a number of Planeswalkers with X in the mana cost. We've also seen some Planeswalkers with Kicker. I've generally felt like both of those designs seemed just like a little awkward to me. And I wasn't super about it. And this one seems, in my opinion, I mean, I haven't played the card, but this design looks like kind of the Goldilocks zone in terms of that.
I think Phyrexian mana needed a downside to come back because it was broken. Still is. Just, too many free spells, too many. And how do you ever put that on Arena? Like, just hold priority. Everybody's in full control from turn 1 when Gut Shot and is in the format, Mental Misstep, Gitaxian Probe. Like, these Phyrexian mana free cards were just always they were too much. They really did kind of make so many things in the format irrelevant. And having a significant downside to the card, I think that makes a difference. I do not mind Phyrexian mana appearing in this way. Anyway, they probably want to know the abilities. Shall I continue?
Please.
All right. +1. Tap up to 1 target artifact or creature it doesn't untap during its controller's next untap step. So we got a little bit of protect yourself freeze action. -X. Exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card. So it's not a reanimation jutsu. It kicks it out of the graveyard and makes a token that's a copy of it. And that, of course, if it gets bounced, goes away and there's feels bads and such. But it's interesting that it's any non-land permanent. It can be a Planeswalker. It can be an artifact, enchantment, creature. Like, it's pretty good.
You could do a land. Oh, no, it's non-land. Okay.
You could do a land. No, you can't.
You could do. Oh, all right. I've already failed. You're taking the rest of this podcast from me, SCG.
I'll just move on, and they'll forget exactly what that was, while you can come up with great things to -X on. The -7, should you get there, is to create Tamio's Notebook, a legendary colorless artifact token with spells you cast cost 2 less to cast and tap to draw a card. Really weird -7, right? It's not an emblem. It's not an emblem. You just make a token. And again, much like the -X, if somebody can bounce the token or destroy the token, you just kind of lost all that loyalty and commitment. But is this a new direction for emblems?
Could be.
Emblems are kind of lame, aren't they?
In a way, yeah. You can't interact with them, which is horrible. They do, I think they contribute to that feeling of like planeswalkers are busted, right? Or like planeswalkers don't belong in Magic because they essentially break the rules of Magic. So and it is just so gnarly, like when your opponent ultimates Teferi and you're just, it's like reality is being sucked through your eyeballs. There's just nothing you can do about it. So I think this is really cool. Just a fun little fact is that you can actually now copy this emblem with anything that can copy an artifact. So, or just a permanent, I guess. So if you wanted to really go ham, you could do that as well. It's just something you can't do with an emblem.
It's a token, so you can double it with Anointed Procession, or I think Doubling Season kind of things, right?
Although I just committed my second sin with this card because I realized that this is a legendary artifact token. So you can't even do that.
Oopsie daisy.
You know, chat, don't mind me. It's Saturday morning. I'm still getting into it. So this card is really, really interesting. It's actually kind of funny because the first thing that I want to do with this card is just like put it into my Bant control deck in Alchemy. Because how sweet would it be? Like envision this, CGB. You're playing in the mirror against Azorius control, and they drop their key to the archive, and you just slam Tamio and you just nope out their key, right? With the +1.
Okay.
And then when they kill your key, you exile it from the graveyard and you just get it back. I mean, what's not to love about this, right?
Oh, yay, a card that's good with Key to the Archive. The nerds are excited.
Yeah, we really needed that.
Yeah,
right?
we needed Key to the Archive to get better. Maybe if there was a Planeswalker that we could play with Key to the Archive that was good, and now we have a Planeswalker that can resurrect the Planeswalker that was good with Key to the Archive. I'm talking about Teferi, of course.
We have completed the trifecta. So that +1, though, I think is better than people will think it is. So, the Teferi you mentioned actually has the ability to tap artifacts and creatures. The big difference though is that they untap as normal. And these ones that this is targeting doesn't. And that is going to feel really like Key to the Archive specifically. If you drop your key and then your opponent taps it down and it's not going to untap during your upkeep, that's a massive loss. So, and there are plenty of things like, creatures and artifacts where you're really going to feel this.
Actually, if this card gets popular, Teferi Who Slows the Sunset gets better because it untaps that creature or that artifact that Tamio taps.
Yep. Very true.
It's so messed up. We needed that card to keep getting better. I don't know. This is a sidetrack. I haven't talked much about the meta since I came back. I am 15-1 on ladder right now with Esper Control with 4 Teferis and 4 keys.
I mean, I believe you. That combo, that was the first combo that I saw potential for with the Alchemy release, and I went hard on it. So, and I am here to attest that combo is every bit as good as it looks.
Yeah, and Tamio's ready to play along for sure. Any other like that -X, man? There's so many things you can reanimate there. It says permanent, right? And we're going to get to it, but there are sagas coming back in this set. There are sagas already in the format. Like you can get back a Binding the Old Gods with Tamio completed Sage.
You can indeed.
Yeah, stuff like that is crazy.
If you're doing any kind of reanimator shenanigan, this is going to be great. I mean, I do like you pointed out, you can freaking get back a Planeswalker with this, and that's pretty sweet.
I mean, any turn where you play 2 Planeswalkers in one turn cycle is pretty strong. It's a really cool build around card, I would say.
It is. Now, so let's talk about the downsides. Apart from tapping down an attacking creature, it doesn't do that good of a job of actually controlling your opponent's board. So this is going to not fare that well against creatures. You're going to need a lot more support if you're going to try to win against creatures playing a card like this. The -X, you actually have to have something juicy to reanimate with it. So neither side of the normal abilities on this Planeswalker is going to be like particularly busted or particularly terrifying for your opponent to see unless you have some kind of cool combo. So I think if you're playing a deck which is planning to have something really juicy in the graveyard to reanimate when this comes down, then this could be a very scary Planeswalker. But other than that, I'm not immediately seeing like reason to really worry about it.
Yeah, on its own, it's not going to end any games itself, I don't think. But yeah, it requires some teamwork, and it's probably like more of a 2 of than a 4 of, but we'll see.
Yeah, really cool card though.
Do you want to take us to the next one? Yeah,
it's me next. All right. Now, this card, I actually posted about this card on Twitter because I'm very impressed. Basically, I'm very impressed and a little bit scared. And also, what a badass character. The Wanderer returns. Now, we were all curious, right? Because it was such a cryptic planeswalker the first time it showed up in War of the Spark. And a lot of people, what were people speculating? There was like another planeswalker, or maybe even like Nick. Weren't people speculating this was like an Elder Dragon or something?
Emrakul.
Oh, Emrakul. That's what it was.
They were speculating that the Wandering Emperor was somehow Emrakul brought back in human form. Yeah.
Which I don't really understand where that particular line of reasoning came from, but I'm sure that some people were very convinced.
Yeah. And did you complete the war? Haha, puns. Here we go. Did you complete the War of the Spark lore with the like Forsaken story that came out?
No,
okay.
I don't follow it.
I know something about the Wandering Emperor that most people don't know. It's gonna be fun.
Okay, you gonna spoil it for us?
Hell
or
no.
Are we gonna...
You're going to figure it out for yourselves.
We're going to figure it out. All right.
And here's why. Because I'm an old man, and the old generation demands the young generation go through pain and suffering to get the thing that they want. And there is no better definition of pain and suffering than, and I'm sorry to the author, reading the Forsaken War of the Sparks story.
I have no trouble in believing that, CGB.
It is the worst. One of the worst books I've ever paid money for in my life.
A Magic book being bad? What is this?
I would read Ready Player 2 3 more times again before I'd touch that book.
Well, if it has anything to do with the Wandering Emperor, I'm interested because I'm just super enamored of this Planeswalker. So let's get into it. This is a white Planeswalker, 2 white for a legendary Planeswalker at Mythic. This comes in with 3 loyalty. Now, here's where it starts to get really interesting, CGB, because this Planeswalker has Flash.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just breaking new territory with Planeswalkers with each set that comes out, and this is like terrifying. I'm actually terrified of this card. I mean, a Flash Planeswalker? Holy crap. So, and then here's another sweet thing. As long as the Wandering Emperor entered the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities anytime you could cast an instant. So not only do you get to resolve this on any opponent's turn, but you also get to do the first activation on their turn as well. And you do get to do it at instant speed, which could come up. So that's just really cool. So what are you actually doing with this Planeswalker? So the +1 is you put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature it gains first strike until end of turn. It has a -1, which is create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with Vigilance. And you have a -2, which is exile target tapped creature. You gain 2 life. Holy crap. This Planeswalker is powerful.
3 loyalty. So a little fragile. I would say my first instinct is it's not very good against a play with fire or burn spells if those are common in the format, like ways to just throw direct damage around, but very versatile. Like I'm going to be, it reminds me of Restoration Angel when it was new and Archangel Avacyn when she was new, of how do you attack when your opponent has the 4 open mana? I mean, if you attack with a 1/1, they can make a 2/2 and block it. If you attack into like their, I don't know, 2/2 creature, they can suddenly have a 3/3 first strike, or they can just straight up exile your attacker and they have a Planeswalker down. Like it. Ooh, man, it's not quite a Settle the Wreckage, but it's going to make people think about attacks in a way that Settle the Wreckage did, and that nothing really has since. You know.
Agreed. So, I mean, to get it out of the way, I don't necessarily think this card is busted.
No.
And, it's a 4-mana white card. Like, it's got a pretty high bar to clear for playability, right? So all that having said, let's explore some of the really powerful scenarios with this card. So let's say that you're playing against a control opponent, right? You can flash this in at the end of their turn, make a 2/2, and if they didn't counter it, you can untap and make another 2/2, right? And then you still have a Planeswalker. So that's kind of a nightmare scenario for your control opponent. Because, I mean, like, if they counter it on their turn, that means that you're likely untapping and being able to slam something else, right? Which is not where a control mage wants to be. They do not want for their, like, aggressive opponent to be playing on their turn. That's really tough for them. And then, even if they do answer it, so you might slam something else. If they don't answer it, they're in a world of trouble. You could be attacking them for 3 that next turn as well. It's just like so many like possible permutations of the abilities on this card.
The Samurai has Vigilance, by the way, so it can get in there for damage and defend the Emperor. Like, that's
totally
real deal.
Okay, now let's talk about in the aggro matchup, which is where this card is really going to shine, right? So you swing in with like 1 or more creatures. Your opponent has the option to exile one of them. They have the option to block one of them. They have the option to make one of their existing creatures block very favorably in that combat with basically a combat trick, +1/+1 and first strike, right? So your opponent playing this card can choose whichever ability feels the best in the situation, and then have a very strong likelihood of untapping with a Planeswalker, right?
Yep.
That's terrifying. I think I would be most terrified of this card if I was planning to do something like tap out for a really strong hasty creature. So if you're like a Goldspan Dragon gamer, or if you're an Ulvenwald Oddity gamer, CGB, can you imagine just how wrecked you get if on turn 4 you tap out for an Ulvenwald Oddity and your opponent slams a Wandering Emperor in the middle of your combat step? Like,
if she's into taxidermy, there's going to be a lot of giant beast moose heads on her wall. Let's put it that way.
Yes, indeed.
You're gonna be like, oh yeah, I guess Ulvenwald Oddity isn't quite a questing beast, because Vigilance would go a long way in that scenario.
Sure would.
I mean, dude, all the big hasties now aren't vigilant like questing beast, so they're all getting exiled by this. It's very brutal, very brutal.
Yeah. What do you have to add? Like, what's going through your mind?
I want to play it in control, but I honestly think it needs or wants like a little bit of a creature shell to make those attacking situations even more difficult for the opponent. Because if this can come down and plus and survive, then the next turn plus again, like it's such a hard creature to deal with, and that's without making a samurai. But like, you're just getting in for so much damage. That sequence where you block and kill their thing with your underpowered thing, like say a Professor of Symbology, and then you untap and then plus again and you hit for 4 is a tempo swing that I think is hard to find right now. There aren't a lot of ways to completely turn a game around in Magic right now, aside from like the Meat Hook Massacre. So it's kind of... this is a very interesting card, and I'm not sure exactly which shell is perfect for it. I don't think it goes into white aggro. In Alchemy, Inquisitor Captain eats a ton of space, so maybe like 1 or 2 can get into a deck like that. So we're looking at mid-range and maybe semi-controlling shells. And when we're looking at mid-range and we have powerful game-swinging options, that's where mid-range might be a deck again. And that's the kind of thing that you want to see and be able to say, this could be mid-range.
No, I totally agree. I want to live in the format in which this is a good card, because it's very interesting, and it's kind of the Goldilocks zone for Magic. Now they took it a little far in War of the Spark. That was kind of like mid-range Planeswalker hell format.
Yeah, but
we're not likely to get there again anytime soon. And yeah, I think the Wanderer is really sweet. I could also see this just being like for those examples where you're a white aggro deck going up against a larger aggro deck like mono green and being worried, like that's a very typical matchup in which you lose, right? Where you're the smaller aggro deck. And so this could be like a total breaker card in those kind of a matchup. So I could potentially see mono white bringing in 1 or 2 copies of this against a deck like mono green, for example.
Yeah, it could be a useful sideboard card.
Yeah.
All right, we're doing it. 2 cards,
Sweet.
25 minutes. Let's go.
Baby. All right. I'll toss this one over to you.
We're going to read Tezeret, the Betrayer of Flesh. This is a 4-mana planeswalker, 2 blue. It has 4 loyalty, mythic, and the first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate is the passive. So a passive that, like, in a 1v1 game cycle could conceivably save you 4 mana every time around the sun. And then there are 3 abilities. +1, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. -2, target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has base power and toughness 4/4. And then -6, when you get an emblem, so emblems have the death of emblems is exaggerated. You get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, draw a card. That's a tick emblem, by the way. 4 loyalty coming in, -6 for that emblem. That is a tick emblem before every tapped artifact draws you a card. What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. I mean, well, we all knew that Tezeret belongs in like artifact decks and potentially artifact combo decks. I don't know. So the thing that interests me most about this card is what are artifacts that have activated abilities that cost mana that we're interested in buffing with this card, because that's where you're going to get really busted stuff, right? Like, and here's the other thing is that this does not say that like this cannot reduce it to 0, right? Like some of these effects still require you to pay mana for something, but if you have an artifact that costs 2 or less mana to activate, you get it for free.
Yeah.
So, I actually have not done my homework with this card, CGB. Are there any artifacts that jump out to you where, like, when you reduce the activation cost, they become absolutely busted?
The first one that jumps out to me is in Historic. It's called Mirage Mirror. It's from Amonkhet. It's a 3-mana artifact, and for 2 open-ended as the activated ability, it becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn.
Yeah.
And you can do that on both turns, and you can basically at will switch it into a land, into a creature, into an enchantment, and it can copy anything on the board, not just your board. So that's the first thing that I want to try with Tezeret in Historic. And I do assume that
like a combo shell waiting to happen.
There's got to be something you can go crazy with. You know, it feels like there has to be something more to it. So that's the first place I want to go play. And then aside from that, you're just on the lookout during spoiler season. We haven't had an artifact set in a while. This is the artifact set now. I believe that you can sacrifice your, if I'm doing this right, I believe you can sacrifice your treasure vault for free. For you know, because it costs 2 less to activate, so you can sacrifice it for a treasure for 0.
Hey, that card gets better. That card gets better if you can do it.
Artifact lands are kind of scary. So this is a thing where you just got to peruse and you get every artifact, and you've got to think about the artifacts that are entering the format. And there's another artifact set this year. The Brothers' War is the last set of this year, and it's if it's not artifact themed, then I don't understand Magic lore.
Wait, hold on. Is an equip cost an activated ability?
It is.
Okay, so equips just got a heck of a lot better. If you have some kind of equipment combo, right? Like this could be really big for that.
How about crew?
Wait, but crew is creatures, right?
Crew is an ability of the artifact of the vehicle. It might cost
lower the crew cost.
I don't know, but what if you could? Like that judge, we need a judge.
Well, because I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little gray circle around that too, right? That's only mana, right?
Maybe.
I think so.
You're probably right. You're probably right. But equip, I think you're right about equipment. I think you're right about free equips. That's kind of wow.
That's juicy, right? So, I mean, obviously, like equipment doesn't typically go into like an artifact control deck, but it might, who knows what kind of equipment we might see. So, yeah, I don't know. There's like a lot of possibilities with this card. Now, The +1 is like in any artifact deck, that +1 is a pretty bonkers ability. Like draw 2, discard an artifacts. As long as you have enough artifacts, like that is just money in the bank, right? And it does a fairly good job of protecting itself. So it turns just like some dorky 2-mana cantripping, like a prophetic prism or whatever you put in there. It turns that into a 4/4, which is a no-joke creature that can defend Tezeret. And, we're kind of, it's signposted that you're supposed to be playing this card in that kind of deck. So you're probably going to have one of those. I kind of love this with that pirate ship, the 1-mana 7/11, right? Like, I mean, that's just
the
a
Dreadnought.
wombo. Yeah, the Dreadnought. Like, that's a wombo card. Do we have that card on Arena? I think we do.
Phyrexian Dreadnought?
No.
It's 7/11.
It's the 7/11.
God, what was 7/11?
Yeah.
Phyrexian Dreadnought is a 1-mana 12/12.
Is it just called Pirate Ship?
No,
anyway,
it's
I don't
not.
But
anyway,
I mean, the price is right on that little interaction.
The only thing people want to know about is Colossal Plow. That's all they care about.
Oh, I mean,
that's all they care about, getting a good Colossal Plow. By the way, it doesn't say till end of turn. So if anybody was missing it on the -2, it's a permanent transformation.
Yep. Pretty sweet. I mean, this can just permanently turn on in a Seeker's Chariot.
Can attack for itself. Yippee-ki-yay, Chariot. Let's go.
So, yeah, I mean, clearly not like you're going to need a reason to jam this card, right? Like this goes into a deck which is basically butters all the sides of the bread of this card. But once that is happening, it looks pretty scary to me.
Agreed. This card is cool.
Nice.
All right. I'll take us to the Kami War. Or no, I just read Tezeret. You're going to take us to the Kami War.
I'll take us through the Kami War. All right. So, sagas are back. And this is a mythic one. And this is a 5-color mythic one. So, holy crap. This is a special Magic card. This card ate its Wheaties when it got up this morning. So, 6 mana, 5 of which are colored in different colors. So this has got to do something really great. The first chapter is exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls. A very solid start to a saga. And then the second chapter, return up to 1 other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, and then each opponent discards a card. All right, so this is like the Ashiok ability, kind of. And then the third chapter, you exile this saga, return it to the battlefield transformed under your control. So CGB, we have sagas with backsides, as if Magic cards needed to get any more complicated. So this is like, they were like, what if we took an enchantment which already has 3 effects, and then we made it leave you with like a whole other card that has whole other abilities and whatever. So let's see what the backside of this card is. It comes back as an enchantment creature, a dragon spirit. Pretty badass looking dragon, by the way. Oh, Kagachi Made Manifest. This is a 6/6. It has all colors. Oh, Kagachi Made Manifest is all colors. It has flying and trample, so it's a flampler. And whenever Kagachi Made Manifest attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard. Return that card to your hand. Kagachi Made Manifest gets +X+O until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. All right. Pretty commandery looking card to me. What are you thinking with the Kami War?
What are you talking about? Commander, dude, 6 mana. That's right when the World Tree kicks in. This is easy to play,
baby. I mean, that is a combo.
Oh man, I don't even know. This card does kind of have Timmy Jank over the top written on it, but it also has like, if people find a way to Niv Mizzet in Historic, why can't they have one of these? Like, it should be castable. Yeah,
right.
Jegantha can help you play this if you need to. I don't. It's cool, right? I want a Yori in it. I want to bounce it with the new Teferi. Just get it back and play it again and again. But hey, if you ever get to that chapter 3, you get a 6/6 flying trample, and that is one of the new rubs of the sagas in this set. When they hit chapter 3, they flip over and they turn into creatures, and that's interesting. It kind of bakes a threat into all of these. So if you have a defensive one, you also have a threat at the end of it. If you have an aggressive one, you just have aggression on more aggression. Lots of cool abilities, lots of opened up play space. I think this card is going to be super niche at best when it comes to standard and alchemy, but not unplayable. You only need a key to the archive and a little tricolor mana base like Esper has, and this thing could come down. I think that you're going to see more of it than I think you'd expect, but that's still not too much.
Yeah, and I mean, this reminds me a lot of Elspeth Conquer's Death.
Yeah.
And it feels worse to me than Elspeth Conquer's Death. But who knows? This is, I think one of the things you're kind of hinting at is that this is an easy card to underestimate.
Yes,
it's very powerful card.
I think the first time one comes down, you're going to be like, look at this memer. And then 2 turns later, you're going to be like, what's happening to me?
Oh, crap. Yeah, no, you're right about that. All right. Take us into the life of Toshiro Umazawa.
Yeah, there are a lot of these sagas, and these are the 2 that I added to the list to kind of summarize what these cards can do. So the life of Toshiro Umazawa, first of all, is a throwback to Umazawa's Jite, which is totally cool. So this is a 1 and a black enchantment saga. It's an uncommon. Chapter 1 and 2 are the same, but they each involve 3 choices. So it's choose one of these 3 things. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and you gain 2 life. These are the abilities of the Jite. Actually, if you had a +1/+1 counter on, or a counter on the Jite, you could remove it to get these things. And Jite, for those of you not absolutely old folk boomers, was a completely dominant, it dominated the set, the format in a way that few things ever have. So this throwback is cool. Okay, on chapter 3, you exile the saga and return to the battlefield transformed, and it is the memory of Toshiro, a 2/3 enchantment creature, human samurai, that is black, and you can tap it to pay 1 life and add a black mana to your mana pool. You may spend that mana only to cast an instant or a sorcery.
It's a weird backside coupled with the front side, right?
You think so?
I mean, so we're basically looking at a deck which wants to be playing sagas, creatures, and instants and sorceries somehow. I could see this as part of a curve, right? There's probably something in mind they have where you play this on 2 and then you do the thing and then it comes back and then there's a turn after that where this is helping you to cast some big instant or sorcery. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
There's a black sorcery I'm itching to cast from this set that we'll get to today, I hope.
So maybe this helps.
In the meantime, Blood on the Snow comes to mind as ramping into that is often very important in the format because you're often taxed trying to do so by Thalia, Redain, and Elite Spellbinder, sometimes all at the same time. The amount of value here is crazy. A 2-mana 2/3 that taps for a black mana that helps you ramp into instants and sorceries would be immediately eyebrow raising if that were all the card is. But the card also has potential for real card advantage. If the opponent is playing X1s, this can kill up to 2 of them when it comes down on turn 2, especially on the draw. If they are not, say you play an Eye Twitch. Well, your Eye Twitch now hits for 3 for a couple turns, which can really change the complexion of a game and how the opponent can proceed, knowing that you can hit them harder than you used to if their life total is lower. Or if you're not sure what to do and your opponent's kind of aggressive, but you can't really kill their stuff, you can just get some life. Just gain 2 life, and then get your 2/3 who ramps you. So it's a ton of value in one card to me. It's I think it's better than Birth of Meletis, and that saw a lot of play in a pushed format.
Oh, okay. Slow your roll. Go Blue.
Why?
I'm not sure about that.
Why?
Okay. So one of the big differences between this card and Birth of Meletis is that this card gets substantially worse the later in the game that you play it, right? I think that if this is a card you're slamming on turn 5 or 6.
I mean, doesn't that apply to all 2-drops? Doesn't that apply to Birth of Meletis?
Well, here's the thing though, this probably better than anyone. is that there are plenty of like white controlling decks where you're like, hell yeah, I'll go for hitting another land drop, right? So it's like the flaw on Birth of Malith is that you're basically drawing another land, which is like, I mean, okay, it could be worse in some decks, right? Like some decks just want to hit like 4 or 5 lands and stay there. So there are some decks where like this is gonna, but I guess what I'm saying is that like this card has to be good in your deck later than turn 2 to like really be a banger. And so I think like it's an interesting deck building challenge. And I think that you raised some of the better scenarios, like having cheap flying creatures. And maybe it's like an aggressive deck with a drain late game, right? This could really shine. So I'm definitely not poo-pooing the card. I'm just saying that like it's a very like it's a card that could look very good in certain situations and matchups, but could look really bad if you like rip it off the top on turn 6.
I can accept that, but I still think that applies to most 2-drops.
See, one of the problems with this is you don't get the creature until like the 3rd turn, right? And that could really matter. So like, for example, if you're playing this in any kind of a stack deck, like you do not want to rip this off the top when you have an empty board and you're staring at that Deadly Dispute in your hand and you're just like, why did I make the life choices I made?
You probably did something wrong if you're staring at a Deadly Dispute at that phase. Just saying.
So I think overall, like I agree, this is an interesting card, but for me, it's going to be hard to find it at home.
Okay, I don't think it'll be that hard. That's my take.
Very versatile card, and I agree. I mean, if you get all of the sides of your bread buttered, it's going to feel pretty good. All right, let's take it into our first legendary dragon of the set.
Yay, dragon talk. Cards are good to draw on turn 6. Let's go.
Cards that we hope are good to draw on turn 6. Jeez. All right, so this one, Ao, the Dawn Sky. Ao. That's sorry.
That was unnecessary. Let's continue.
Listen what I say. All the Chili Peppers fans in the chat just had an orgasm. All right. 3 white legendary creature, dragon spirit, flying and vigilance. This is a 5/4. When Ao the Dawn Sky dies, choose one. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. Put any number of non-land permanent cards with total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. With upcoming. And then the other option is put 2+1/+1 counters on each permanent you control. That's a creature or vehicle. All right. So that's pretty terrifying.
That's pretty terrifying.
So this looks pretty solidly positioned to be like the top end in a white creature deck that probably plays like relatively cheap creatures or tries to get on the board quick and maybe go wide. When it's not getting exiled and it's in a deck like that, but like countered or exiled and it is in a deck like that, yeah, it looks pretty terrifying.
Yeah, I'm a blanket statement for the dragon cycle. First of all, they're dragon spirits, they're mythics, they're exciting, they're callbacks to the cycle from original Kamigawa that had these cards, and they saw play back then, but Magic was a lot different. Of course, we're going to talk about them. They're exciting. All of these can get hit by Vanishing Verse, and it's sad. All of these can get hit by Fading Hope, and it's annoying. All of these can get countered, and it's wham. We know.
They can all get taken out by the Wanderer. So just remember that.
Yep.
Too.
We are very aware of these things. And if that means you don't want to craft them, hear about them, talk about them, or laugh at people who like them, then, go just tune out for a minute. Okay. It's a cool dragon. And when it dies, it does stuff. And if we're in a Doomblade world, like these cards are very good because targeted removal really affects them. Another thing that can make the dragons go from being all these sad things happen to it all the time to suddenly they're interesting is what happened to them when they were in standard before, especially in white and green. the card Greater Good existed. You could play this 4-mana enchantment that was an open-ended sacrifice a creature to draw cards equal to its power and then discard 3 cards.
Wow.
So you would play your dragon after Greater Good, you would sacrifice it as soon as you wanted to, draw a bunch of cards, and also get the death ability. I don't know what's going to exist, but if there's an open-ended sack outlet so that if this resolves, you can have that death ability, these cards become very relevant very quickly. Like very quickly, especially if it's something as good and useful as Greater Good. So that's still a good reason to keep an eye on these. And this white one specifically, that ability that if you have a board, now your board is epic. If you don't have a board, you rebuild a board by getting mana value 4 or less and just slamming it on the battlefield. That's good stuff.
Yeah, it's true. And cards like this go up substantially in value. Like, let's say that you're playing against a mono red deck or a mono green deck, and they're just exile and counter is not part of the equation, right? And like, you're not going to feel great about Blizzard brawling this stuff, even if you get like, a 4 mana differential in how you interacted, right? Because like this, you might do this pre-combat and look at your opponent's board and suddenly realize I can't attack anymore. So yeah, could be surprisingly relevant in matchups like that.
Yep. I think the way that the format is currently in Standard and Alchemy, you're looking at sideboard cards in best of 3 play or Grizzled Huntmaster targets. But I think there are some cards and types of cards that can be printed that make these serious players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Like, not to be dismissed offhand. Like, this is no old Gnawbone, like this could be a real card.
Let's shall I give you the next real card of the Dragon cycle?
Yeah,
my heart just sang when they revealed these two together, the white one and the blue one. You know what I mean? Just a little blue and white dragon action.
I do.
So, Kiri lays along the road that I have traveled. All right. Kiri, yeah, that's what I'm going with. I'm going with Kiri by Mr. I think it was. The Swirling Sky. And this is a legendary dragon spirit mythic, 6/6 flying with ward 3. And when the Swirling Sky dies, choose one of these 2 abilities. Return any number of target non-land permanents with total mana value 6 or less to their owner's hands. Or mill 6 cards, then return up to 2 instant or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. Ooh. So you can either kind of draw 2 instants or sorceries with selection. That sounds like a CGBE thing. Or you can bounce a whole bunch of things on the board, also a CGBE thing. We got a dragon for CGB, baby.
No, this really is. Like, as you were reading that second ability, I was already envisioning you just like demolishing some salty opponent with this card. This is one of those cards where like it doesn't look very good, but then like in certain situations, it just completely dominates you. And if you're good at building decks, such as you are, CGB, I'm sure you could come up with plenty of fun shells to put this into.
It's for me. It's for me.
This card was made for a CGB video.
Absolutely. So excited about it. A lot of things we said about the dragons, when we talked about the last one, are going to apply to this too. And I just need an easy sack outlet, man. It's all I really need. Just something easy. I'd almost play Witch's Oven to play these dragons.
You know what I love about this is that you're like, usually when we're looking at sack creatures, we want them to be cheap, right? We want them to cost 1 mana and give us a little bit of extra value. I love how we're playing these 6 mana legendary dragons and immediately thinking like, how can we just freaking put this in an oven, dude?
Yeah, we get the sucker in the graveyard. Let's go.
But one thing that you're highlighting is that, Witch's Oven actually does make these dragons a lot better, because if your opponent does happen to point like an exile spell at something, you're like, nope, like this thing's going to the graveyard and I'm getting my value. So if something like that does happen, especially if your opponent paid the ward on this, right? And then you just like village rights it or whatever, they're going to feel really bad about that.
Get back the village rights. If you want to, why not? I mean, we'll do this again. I got all day.
So I'm just saying, I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Maybe we should go over some more dragons while we're on the subject.
Let's do it. All right. So this next one, Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa. This is another white one, so that's kind of interesting. I'm getting Cupcake Tyrant vibes just from the art. Sorry, CGB.
What?
3 and a.
Excuse you.
Doesn't this look like the Cupcake Tyrant? Anyway, 3 and a white, 3/3. Legendary creature dragon Spirit. This one has flash and flying. When Kyodai, Soul of Kamigawa, enters the battlefield, another target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai. All right, this is like the world's flashiest and most expensive bodyguard. And wait, there's more. You can pay rainbow, 1 of each color of mana, as many times as you like, and Kyodai gets +5/+5 until end of turn. All right, this card just got weird.
It really did, right?
Okay, you know what this is. You know why they put that on there, CGB?
I do.
So that this can be the commander of your 5-color deck. That's why they put this on there.
That's right. Yeah. There's a 5-color commander identity card in the Kamigawa set, so that you 5-color rainbow players can go off and you miss Golos, try this one. Why not?
Yeah, why not? I'm gonna reserve my beliefs about which is the better card. But yeah, so okay. I mean, this is going to be a wrecking if you're trying to, kill your opponent's creatures and whatever. This does kind of have that Resto Angel effect.
They're creatures, or they're planeswalkers, or they're artifacts, or they're lands, or they're enchantments.
Okay, so how does this work, though? Let's say someone's attacking your planeswalker and you flash this in and give your planeswalker indestructible. What does that even do?
I think the loyalty counters still get removed, which I believe either the planeswalker goes away right then or it goes away at end of turn.
At the end of turn, yeah.
One of the two.
So that's not really going to work. But
I mean, it doesn't save it from an attack, but I mean, saves it from Hero's Downfall type effects, which
that's true.
Could happen. Saves it from Hour of Promise, planar cleansing type board wipey effects. Saves it from Fateful Absence, which I guess is a pretty popular one at the moment. Yeah.
I like that it's not until end of turn. I like that it's just there until this creature leaves the battlefield. So that's something that might be easy to miss about this, but like you gotta kill this thing first, basically.
Yep, you gotta go through Kyodai before you can get rid of permanent X. The ability to defend like artifacts and enchantments is probably not trivial either.
Okay, so think about how terrifying this is, right? Let's say that you're playing like some combo deck or some deck that relies very heavily on a particular busted permanent to stay alive, right? So let's say like you're like, oh, my opponent resolved this combo piece artifact or whatever. I need to kill that thing right now. So you point a spell at it, they flash Kyodai in and protect it. So they just blanked one spell. Now you're going to have to go through Kyodai before you even get a shot at killing that thing again, right?
Yeah.
So this thing could eat 3 removal spells in order for you to have to deal with whatever that problematic permanent is. That could be really good.
Unfortunately, is not great at helping you out against like board wipes. I think it saves the creature once. Yeah, okay, then it dies. Yeah. And then the creature loses indestructible, but survived the happening, you could say. Yeah, I guess it's not terrible. Especially if it's like a crush the weak type board wipe that doesn't kill a Kyodai. Like Kyodai survives it.
That would be really nice. Yeah. So I mean, this is reading like I don't think this sees main deck play, but I could be wrong.
I think it's a commander card for the most part. I'd be surprised to see a lot of it in standard based on the 3/3 stats, but it's cool and it's useful. And
it is.
Kind of excited about that myself. It's also a dragon and a spirit, which are 2 types that are going to pop off in this set because spirits weren't quite playable, but there are a lot of cards like, is it Patrician Geist that makes spirits cost 1 less to cast and gives them all +1/+1?
Don't even remember.
Yeah,
that
like
sounds good though.
Yeah, there are these spirit cards that just are really, really haven't mattered, quite frankly, because they didn't seem to apply. Yeah, it is. Oh, it spells from your graveyard cost 1 less to cast. Now that's a little worse. But anyway, stuff that influence spirits, stuff that influences dragons. We know that there's dragon stuff out there. Dragons is a big time deck in alchemy, at least pre-nerf. It's going to be good.
Yeah, no, agreed. Sweet. All right, you want to hit this next one for us?
The next one I've got is me being unprepared. Oh, yeah, I just moved this one. The next one is Junji, the Midnight Sky. This is a cool freaking looking dragon. The art is like, yes. 3 and a black 5/5 legendary creature, dragon spirit, mythic, flying and menace. Good luck blocking this one. And when it dies, choose one. Each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life, or put target non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and you lose 2 life. It doesn't say your battlefield, it says a battlefield. Jinju is coming for whatever Jinju wants to get 5 cost or under anyway. Or no, not even. You can get a freaking Praetor with this. I can get your Elish Norn from your graveyard. Okay, we're taking them to the top rope and giving them the people's elbow. This one's, I'm excited about this card. And it's in black, where sacrificing a creature is a thing you often want to do.
Yeah, I mean, let's go back to our like mono green, mono red scenario. If your opponent slams this card, especially ahead of schedule, like if they ramped it off a treasure or something like that.
Turn 1, Shambling Gas. Turn 2, Deadly Dispute. Turn 3, Junji.
That's what I'm saying. Your opponent slams this on turn 3, and you're looking at your hand, and you're like, wait, so if I Blizzard Brawl that thing, I lose my Blizzard Brawl, and I have to discard 2 cards? Like, ouch. That's an ouch, dude, right there.
That's assuming you have a troll to Blizzard Brawl it with. Like, it's a 5/5.
Yeah. I mean, this thing's big and like
unblockable.
Well, even like I mean, you as a control mage, right? Like your opponent slams Junji, and you look at that removal spell in your hand, and you're like, ooh, 3 for 1. That feels nice.
It better be Vanishing Verse. It better not be. It better not be Fateful Absence. 4 for 1.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. So I mean, this could just be very brutal to have to play against.
And yeah, this is one where, you know, you can just have your assuming there's no open clean sack outlets available, like you can just have your Village Rites, you can have your Deadly Dispute with this card, and it's brutal. And then you can get it back with Blood in the Snow, and you can make them go through all this again. And it was hard to find a creature you wanted to play in these mono black decks that wasn't better than Lulth, but yeah, I definitely want to play this, probably with some Lulth and some of this, but I definitely want to play this one.
Okay, question. If you legend rule these things, do you get a death trigger?
You do.
All right.
You do.
So, I mean,
yes, you do.
I mean, if you just want to empty your opponent's hand, or let's say your opponent happened to, I don't know, maybe they're playing Reanimator, and you're like, ooh, I'll take an Ulamog or whatever. You know, you just
come to Papa. Yeah.
Let's go. So,
Immerstrom Predator is an open-ended sack outlet that's also a dragon.
That's a really good point, CGB. Really good point. I mean, combine one questionably playable card with another, and let's see where we go from there.
Questionably playable. No respect for the Predator.
I got no respect for the Predator. I'll be open about that.
If it's a 4-mana dragon, this guy just won't touch it.
I just
Townraiser Tyrant is his only bay.
But I do have a soft spot for 5-cost dragons. So, and this is another one of those cards where your opponent's going to play it, and in Constructed, you'll be like, ha, look at this play Q Mima, you know, and then like a couple turns later, you're just crying.
How did I lose? Their Village Rites drew them 2 and lost me 2, and I discarded 2, and then they just got it back.
All right. This next card looks like it might have been a dragon one day. I don't know. Anyway, we have another Praetor, people.
This is what your Jinju is stealing right here. Right frickin' here.
Oh, let's go. So, Jin Gitaxias, Progress, Tyrant, someone who just wants to keep us in the past, I guess. I don't really know what that name means, but anyway. Or maybe who wants to own Progress, you know, like Google.
They were scared to say Progressive Tyrant.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Marxist. Look at this Marxist over here. Anyway, for the affordable price of 5 blue, you get to have this legendary creature, Phyrexian Praetor, on your side. It's a 5/5, so I'm not impressed yet. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy that spell. Ooh, key to the archive, baby.
Oh, God.
You may choose new targets for the copy. This ability triggers only once each turn. And then whenever an opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, counter that spell. This ability triggers only once each turn. So I mean, it's a hell of a reanimator target for sure. Hell of a cheat into play target.
Oh yeah, cheating this into play or cheating a copy of this into play through some kind of reanimation sneaky jutsu or whatever is like this thing on the board requires a very certain set of answers, or you are going to die to it, because it does counter on any turn, like the first instant or sorcery that might try to target it, and then you have to have another one. And assuming they did that, you already got your 2-for-1. If you're somehow able to do it in a way that you also get to cast any instant or sorcery or artifact and you get double effect from it, there's a little bit of Leer to this, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yep. There's a little bit of Leer with a stocked graveyard feel on Jin-Gitaxias Progress Tyrant. And it's a scary card. It's probably a Timmy card, but there's no way I'm not playing this in Commander on week 1. Like I'm straight to the top rope in my play group. We're gonna make some enemies.
This loves a key to the archive before you've cast it and after you've cast it.
It does.
So, yeah, I this set not making that card look any worse, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't think standard, unless it's reanimated or snuck into play somehow. In standard, Hullbreaker Horror is still gonna like run that town, and Leer isn't scuffed there, so Leer can keep doing its thing. But though this is another card that's happy that Divide by Zero isn't around, because Divide by Zero, could have bounced it. But
yeah, very true.
In Alchemy, it's scary, man.
Yeah, it is scary. Perhaps not like competitive scary, but like fun scary for sure. I mean, this card hates Disdainful Stroke, so that's the kind of thing you need to watch out for.
Yep.
But I mean, against anything except counter magic or maybe board wipes, this card does look pretty scary. So,
exciting card.
Yeah,
exciting card.
Sweet. Yeah. All right. Take us into Boseiju Who Endures.
I think that this is like one of the most exciting, must-have cards in the set.
This card is bazonkers.
This is like the Luris that's going to just affect multiple formats, although it's not going to do it in the way that Luris did. Let's read the card. Yeah. Boseiju Who Endures is a legendary land that enters the battlefield untapped and taps for green mana. It's a rare, and it has the ability Channel. Channel is an old school ability that says you pay an amount, you discard the card, and you get an effect. So for 1 and a green, you can discard Boseiju Who Endures. You can destroy target artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land an opponent controls. That player may search their library for a land card with a basic land type, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control.
CovertGoBlue, I think they forgot to print a downside on this card.
Forest has been upgraded.
Did I read that right? I think the only downside is that it's legendary.
The downside is the opponent gets to fetch a land if you blow up their cheap artifact, enchantment, or non-basic land. But otherwise, it would be truly insane, and no one would ever play Naturalize or Disenchant ever again.
So this is like anyone who plays green in Commander is rushing out to buy this card. This card, like
instantly,
in 5 to 10 years, this card is probably going to cost like $60 on the used market.
If it's not reprinted regularly in like all these Commander decks, it's going to be more than that, I think. This has the makings of like a Force of Negation level of, if you're going to play this color, you've got to have it. This has the the extra special full art foil version is going to be over $100.
This sees play in every format it's legal, right? Like,
why not?
This goes all the way back to vintage.
At least one.
I mean,
at least one.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the reasons this card is busted. First of all, it is not a spell, so you can't counter it.
Can't counter it.
You can stifle it, but you can't counter it. All right. This is like the world's best DFC because it comes down as a land with no downside. right?
Yep.
I mean,
just a better forest on the battlefield. Yeah.
All right. Think about all of the cards in Magic that return a land or permanent from the graveyard to your hand.
Or search your library for a land and put it into your hand. Just got
I didn't
really
even think
upgraded.
About that. I didn't even think about that.
Every commander deck with a Sylvan Scrying has access to another naturalize now if they need it.
Oh my god.
Nylea's Intervention in Historic and Historic Brawl. Yep.
It's Boseju's World, and we just live in it now. CBD. This card's really gonna change things. Holy crap.
I think that the change, I think it's easy to overstate based on what's happened to Magic in the last few years, but at the same time, that's still a big deal. It's not going to change things in the way that an Oko or a Luris did, where it's going to make it like certain cards just aren't played anymore. I don't think that Boseiju removes all artifacts and enchantments from the meta because of the low opportunity cost of this disenchant. It reduces the amount of games that end because your opponent had something like an Ensnaring Bridge and you didn't happen to have an artifact kill in your deck. Like an artifact that takes over the game and you just have the wrong answer. As long as you have green in your deck, you may as well have one of these at least. And probably two, but at least one of these in your deck so that you don't just lose to those permanent types, which is better for best of one play, which includes commander play.
I mean, the opportunity cost is so low on this, right? So this is the kind of thing where, yeah, you can run just like one or two of these, let's say in your modern or legacy deck for basically no cost. And then you can put a couple more in your sideboard, right? Like if you happen to be playing against like a deck that is really built around some problematic artifact or enchantment. And that is like almost free. I mean, it's just...
It does ramp your opponent, which, in 1v1 play, Assassin's Trophy isn't half as popular as it is in like 4-player play.
So here's the thing though, right? Is that like the nice thing about this card is, let's say you draw an opening hand with two of these, you can just play the first one out, right?
Yeah.
And then the second one becomes a disenchant. And let's not forget that non-basic land clause, right? Like, there are some formats that play like, for example, what's that stupid Saga land they printed recently in Modern?
Urza Saga? Yeah, this straight up kills that. Yeah,
this can just murder that card. Maybe you're not happy about it, but maybe it stops you from dying to it. And if you drew two of them, you're going to feel pretty good about having a target. So I think this is a card which, like, it's going to be cool on Arena. Don't get me wrong. This is going to be really great on Arena, but like it's going to change some other formats.
We've said a lot of nice things about Key to the Archive. Screw Key to the Archive. Just blow it up, baby.
Taste it. Yeah, you're not going to feel great if you tap 4 mana, you get a card, but you have to discard a card, and then you just get it blown up and you get a land. Like, it's not going to feel that good. So
especially if you can't cast the card you fetched.
Totally. If you go through a lot of hoops to like get down your Great Henge and Historic, and then someone just Boseju's it, it's going to feel real bad.
Interesting thing is the basic land type line, because Pathways and Chill Lands don't have a basic land type, and neither do DFCs. There aren't that many basic lands in these decks. And in older formats, like, you can go fetch a Breeding Pool because it has a forest in the line. It's like, we don't see this
a basic
usually.
Land type. Yeah,
not a basic land, a basic land type. It's a little different.
That's true. That's true. So like your opponent could actually get a Triome off of this.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be fun. Well, anyway, yeah, this card is bazonkers, and I'm kind of blown away that they printed it. All right, let's talk about Surge Hacker Mech. This costs 4 colorless mana. It is an artifact vehicle at rare. It is a 5/5 when it is a creature, and it has menace. When Surge Hacker Mech enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to twice the number of vehicles you control to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and it has crew 4. So, kind of like Flame Tongue Kavu on a vehicle, essentially.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting card design.
It is. It probably gets its money. Like, Menace is really hard to block. So if you do crew it, you're more likely to hit something. The damage going to a creature, like the idea of getting some removal out of it, if you have even one other vehicle, then you're dealing 4 damage to a thing with a 4 mana card. That is Flame Tongue Kavu. So in a vehicle theme deck, which definitely seems like the kind of thing they're pushing, and the reason I chose this card to show that this is something they care about, I think this will be a playable part of it. Like, some people said, well, compare it to Chariot. Chariot's better. I'm like, Chariot does a lot of things, but Chariot doesn't reach over the board and kill stuff. Sometimes you got to get things off the board, and Chariot's a little slow to do it. So I'm curious what Surge Hacker Mech is going to do. Also worth noting that blinking it, just getting that ability multiple times is an option. So I thought it was worth throwing on the list.
I mean, you play this, and then you play Tezeret the following turn. That's going to feel pretty good.
Turn it into a 5/5 that just straight attacks with Menace. Yeah. I don't know. It's a card worth watching. Also, just kind of fanboy for a minute. There's mechs. Mechs are a thing in the set.
Mechs in Magic. I mean, who doesn't like big robots? So, final thing to just note, Asika's Chariot is a vehicle, a highly playable one at that, and a still fully armed and operational in Standard too. So in Standard specifically, like, if they print any other like vehicles masses cards that are actually good, then we could start to see like a pretty good vehicle stack.
Yeah. So, we're going to be going for rides.
Heck yeah. All right. Secluded Courtyard. This is a land. It's an uncommon land, thank God. As Secluded Courtyard enters the battlefield, choose a creature type, and then you can tap it to add colorless mana, and then you can tap it to add 1 mana of any color. Spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type or activate an ability of a creature or creature card of the chosen type. So isn't this a strict upgrade to, what is that? There's a card that this is like
Ancient Ziggurat?
Ancient Ziggurat, yeah.
Sort of. Ancient Ziggurat can tap for 1 mana of any color to cast a creature spell. This makes you choose the color.
Oh, you have to choose the type.
Yeah. Yep. So, it makes you choose the type. You're right. You have to choose the type. So you can't play a total, all kind of tribal zoo deck. You need to have some type in common. But Ancient Ziggurat, you couldn't tap for colorless mana. It just did nothing if you were trying to cast a non-creature. And this you can tap for colorless mana. And I put this on the list because I think it's going to be better than Forsaken Crossroads in decks that want to curve out and play a lot of creatures. And for me, that means Alchemy, Inquisitor, Captain decks. I think all these 2 and 3 color Inquisitor Captain decks in Alchemy are going to run Secluded Courtyard because it just helps them cast so many of their creatures.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's going to go great in like those Selesnya Humans decks or Angels decks and Historic, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very cool Magic card. It's going to show up. It's going to be great. I'll
grab the next one. Oh, okay. All right. This is what Umazawa lived for, to cast this card.
Oh, baby.
Invoke Despair appears to be part of a cycle, so this is fun, and it costs 1 black. So 5 total mana, with 4 of it being black. It is a sorcery. It is rare, and it says target opponent sacrifices a creature. If they can't, they lose 2 life and you draw a card. Repeat this process for an enchantment and a planeswalker. If they have nothing, this is 5 mana, lose 6 life, and I'll draw 3 cards. If they have one of these things, it's I'll draw 2 cards, you lose 4 life, and you lose the thing. And sometimes it's other things in between. This card is apparently a big wave coming out of the sewer and making everyone super despaired. Go on.
I mean, if you saw a tidal wave of sewage approaching you, you would probably feel pretty despairing as well.
I'd lose 2 life.
You'd probably lose more life than that, man. I mean, damn. All right. Fairly powerful card. How good is it really?
Really? How good is it really? I don't know.
Really?
So it's meta contextual. If the opponent's going to play 10 creatures and you're not going to play Meat Hook Massacre, but you're going to cast this instead, you're going to regret your life's choices by a lot. It reminds me a little of Death Cloud, which was around when the last Kamigawa set was legal and standard, and there were times where you should not be Death Clouding when the opponent was playing like cards that made 1 million green tokens, and there were times when you should definitely be Death Clouding because the meta was revolving around Tron lands and a couple artifacts. And Invoke Despair is going to have its moments, and I'm definitely going to play it and seek those moments like a junkie seeking a fix. But in general, I'd be surprised if it were a complete dud in its lifetime in Standard, and I think some kind of Invoke Despair deck at some point will hit hard. And I'm going to cast Galvanic Iteration, and I'm going to cast this.
I mean, it's... okay, I love it.
I'm going to invoke a lot of despair. It's kind of what I do.
Oh my gosh. I would love to see you put this in a deck that plays any other color. Like, be my guest, my friend.
Dude, 5-color invoke despair. We're going to just play the World Tree. It's going to be fine.
Oh, it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be amazing.
Little, dare I say it, key to the archive action here.
Did we have to talk about that with every... Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
Because if you have 2 keys to the archive, you can cast this in your blue-white deck.
Slam this, yeah. Oh, no, that's what I'm waiting to see, CGB. That is the ultimate troll. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Because, like, let's say, okay, like, yeah, this is... I'm trying to like come up with the scenario in which you cast this and you're just like, yeah, you know what I mean? And it's kind of hard for me because like it's difficult to imagine that your opponent has like only one good creature out and they happen to have an enchantment and a planeswalker in play, right? And like, okay, it replaces itself, you draw cards, but you did pay 5 mana at sorcery speed for the pleasure, right? So it's hard. This is a hard sell for me, basically.
That's fine. So I understand, but I'm still with it. I'm gonna try. We're gonna see what happens.
Tidal wave of sewage. It's just.
I mean,
it has to go on the list.
I just want to play a control deck that's gonna kill all their things anyway, and then we're just gonna win con with this. 4 of these is...
I love it. Okay.
4 of these is you lose 24 life and I draw 12 cards. Easy.
Win con acquired. Love
Win
it.
con acquired. Also,
misery acquired.
By the way, black enchantment removal.
Yeah, that's true. Here's something to note. Each successive... I mean, you did raise this as a point, but each successive one of these that you cast is going to hurt your opponent a lot more. So that's a good thing to know. Like if you start chaining these off, it is going to start to be really awful.
The lower their life total, the better it is. Yeah.
Indeed. All right. This next one is pretty exciting. I think Invoke Calamity. The same cycle. 1 red. This one is an instant. And that, my friends, is a world of difference. You may cast up to 2 instant and or sorcery spells with total mana value 6 or less from your graveyard and or hand without paying for their mana cost. If those spells will be put into your graveyard, exile them instead. Exile Invoke Calamity. So when this was a sorcery, like for example with that, what was that X spell that they play in Historic and Phoenix?
Finale of Promise, I believe.
Yeah, Finale of Promise, right? So this is like an instant speed Finale of Promise. It has some downsides that card doesn't have. But overall, like if you want to be Finale of Promising, like this is a pretty good version of that card, I think.
This card might go crazy.
Yeah.
That you can, for one thing, just on the surface, assume you have a ton of good instants and sorceries in your deck that do cool things. You can invoke and cast another invoke if that is a thing you're interested in and have another 1 mana left over to do something else and then go get 2 other things from your graveyard and so on. Like if you self-mill, you could have multiple invokes in the graveyard and just keep going. So
you're telling me that you could Galvanic Iteration.
I was going to get to that. Yes.
Play Invoke Calamity and then hit off of your Invoke Calamity, Galvanic Iteration, and another Invoke Calamity. And then, my friends, I assume you win the game on the spot.
I don't know what you're going to copy that many times for free and do with all that free mana value, but probably something. It's so Galvanic Iteration you hit on was one of the first things that I was like, oh, because it's good before it and it's good to hit off it. Either way, you can hit Galvanic Iteration and then you have any 4 or less mana, like CM mana value to play with to cast the other spell that you want to be copied by Galvanic Iteration when you cast Calamity. Or you can just Galvanic Iteration the Calamity and you use 7 mana to get 12 mana worth of mana value from your Invoke because you get to do it twice. And it's from hand or graveyard. Do I see that right? You don't.
Yes.
If those spells would be put into your graveyard, exile them instead. Okay, so the spells you cast yourself get exiled. But if you cast a card draw spell, then you can then play some of the cards from your copy that you did with the iteration on the next round, or discard them and play them from the graveyard. And there's got to be something. Like, for example, you can invoke Calamity and use 5 of it to cast Invoke Despair, and if you just storm off enough, you just kill them. I mean, think about, like, doesn't that sound kind of fun? And we haven't seen all of the cycle, of course, but right now, just the 2 invokes together, if things hit right with Galvanic Iterations, leave your opponent dead. That alone is a bit of a fun dream to build around and chase.
So, and here's another thing too. Let's say you're playing a Rakdos deck, and you just really need to Blood on the Snow on turn 5 instead of on turn 6, you can do that with this card.
Yeah,
right? Like,
you can.
It doesn't feel good, but if that's the thing that's keeping you from losing the game next turn, it's going to feel great. So this can actually, in a weird way, just be like a weird ramp spell, right? It can be kind of like the feat card, right? The
feat card. The feat card.
I'm not doing a great job of. What's that card? It's like 1 red, and then it adds 7 mana to your mana pool, right?
Oh, Ironcrag Feet.
Ironcrag Feet. I got it right.
I just was picturing the things you put boots on, not whatever the heck that is.
I actually got half of the name right. So yeah, this is like a worse Ironcrag Feet. But if you need it to be that, well, I'm just saying, right? That because it's total mana value of 6 or less, right? So I'm just saying that, like, this could fill in that role in a janky way if you needed it to.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm not saying it's worse than that card. I'm just saying that in that particular situation, it might kind of fill in that role. But yeah, no, I'm totally with you, dude. This card, the more I think about it, the more I read it, the more I look at that little instant in the line, like, I'm legit terrified this card. And this is making me wonder, like, was the problem really Galvanic Iteration all along?
We're going to find out, I think, because this screams build around. We don't need to go there again, but how about this with anything from Key to the Archive at all? Other than, I guess, Approach of the Second Sun. Like, you can cast your Time Warp again from the graveyard in Alchemy. Like, why not?
Yikes.
Let's go.
Yikes. Another thing to note, speaking of extra turn spells, could this be the card that makes that Alchemist's Gambit playable?
Oh, wait a minute.
So now you're not going to get the kicker
risky.
on it, right?
It's really risky.
But it's the kind of thing where, like, how many extra turns do you need if you're playing like some bonkers spell combo deck? And here's the other thing, right? Is like, so you can cast the front side of Alchemist's Gambit off of half of this, and then you use the other 3 mana to do something else.
Yep. All
I'm saying is, like, it's not that hard for me to connect the dots between this going into some kind of Alchemist's Gambit like combo deck to just be like a 2-turn kill, right?
Yeah, I need to look through basically the list of all of the instants or sorceries we have in Standard and Alchemy, and all the ones that are going to get printed, including like lessons from Strixhaven and stuff like that. And then it's like you just try to put together what all can you do. You can probably do a lot.
Yep. Very, very cool card, and might end up being broken. All right, CGB, hit us with this next one.
So Kenzen, Crucible of Defense, is another card with very little downside and why the heck not type potential to be everywhere. Anyway, this is a legendary land. It's a rare. It taps for red. And Channel, you can pay 3 and a red to discard this land and create 2 1/1 colorless spirit creature tokens. They gain haste until end of turn. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each legendary creature you control. Why not play 1?
Yeah. 1 is free. Like, it is free.
Yep. Unless, I don't know, Snowlands, but Faceless Haven got banned in Standard and nerfed in Alchemy, so Snowlands ain't what they used to be. I had a few people be like, well, this isn't any good as compared to Boseiju. And what? It was like, sometimes you just deal 2 damage and win. Ramanop Ruins was pretty good.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. No, this is terrifying. Like, Mono Red plays 2 of these easy. Mono Red might play 4 of these, like, depending on what their deck looks like. I mean, this card has, like, let's just say this again, Crafties. This card has very little downside. If you play 1, it has no downside. If you play 2, it probably doesn't have much of a downside. So, yeah.
Uncounterable instant speed. You make the two creatures.
Wow.
Think about historic and think about the invoke creativity, you know? Like just end of your turn, I'll just make these nerds, and then on my turn, I'll turn them both into giant threats. So that's just a fun combo that you can do in historic.
Hey, does Zerda the Dawnwaker reduce the cost of this effect?
I mean, Zerda is a legendary creature, and then Zerda itself, I believe, says permanent, right? If it does, then it's only 1 red for the 2 1/1s. I mean, I guess that's juicy.
That sounds pretty nice to me. Anyway, I'm just saying, like if there's anything that... Okay, this is my question. If, let's say there's something that says activated abilities on lands, like, you control is reduced. Like, do they have to be in play, or can they be in your hand?
Good question. I think in play, but now I'm not sure. I think Channel is, besides it's like an ability, I don't know if it reduces the same way. It's like an option to cast it, or not cast it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd be interested. But anyway.
Same thing applies from what we said about Boseiju, where now anything that gets a land back from the graveyard, or draws a land, or searches your library for a land and puts in your hand, now you have this new option to make creatures, which is also a big deal if you play the Aluna Omniscience Historic Brawl combo deck as much as I do.
Yeah. Oh, here's another thing we didn't mention. Any effect that returns lands to your hand, boom. We can do that too. Play it on turn 1 as a land. Later in the game, you get it back as a spell, basically.
Yeah, Modern, that's Ren and 6 is a big one for that, for you paper boomers.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, card's great. Probably not going to see cross-format play quite like the green one will, but it's still an absolutely unbelievable.
And in Standard and Alchemy, why not play 1? Like, you should probably have 1 in every deck that would have a mountain.
Yeah, red control deck should play 1. I mean, the 2 blockers at freaking instant speed. Terrifying. All right. Next card here, March of Otherworldly Light. This is X and a white instant speed. Rare spell. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of white cards from your hand. Oh, okay. This is interesting.
Mind twist myself.
Yeah.
Let's go.
The spell costs 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way, and you can exile target artifact, creature, or enchantment with mana value X or less. Whoa, dude. Okay, this is kind of getting us into the territory of it's not quite the same, but you know that cycle of free, like, what are they called? It's a cycle in Modern, and they're creatures, and they have the force of will.
The incarnations?
The incarnations, that's what they are, right?
Okay.
So this is like Incarnation at Home, is what this is.
They strike me as shoals, which were in the original Kamigawa. Like, it feels like a shoal throwback where you had to discard a card or exile a card from your hand to cast this like shoal thing, and the value of the X was equal to the mana value of what you discarded.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
very boomer.
I never played with those.
Very old. Yeah. The good ones were banned really fast.
Okay, so it's a very versatile removal spell. It's an exile effect, which is very nice. And you don't have to go down cards to play this. And the option to go down cards to play this is kind of icing on the cake. And it's basically like a fireball, right? So the more I look at this card, the more I like it. I think this, depending on the shape of the format, this could end up being an absolute staple.
It answers a number of permanent types that are hard to answer with just creature removal. Artifacts and enchantments sometimes hang out over there on the battlefield and slip through the cracks when you're having to focus so much of like your control or in aggro or mid-range removal suite on creatures. So the flexibility is really good. If you are really turned off by the idea of exiling a card from your hand to trade it up on mana, then just think of how nice it will be when you exile a creature land for 1 white mana. It's pretty good.
That's gonna be very good.
That feels good. Any token as well, you know.
Any 0 cost thing.
Yep.
Yeah. This card, the more I think about this, like this is just going straight into any of your white control decks, right?
I think this might have a place as a 1 or 2 of in every kind of white control deck, but I think it also might have a place as a 1 or 2 of in every aggressive strategy where cards getting stranded in your hand and then getting exiled so that you can kill stuff is kind of a big deal. Emiria's Call also, let's talk about the modal DFCs that you can exile to this. You can't pitch a land to it, but you can pitch an Emiria's Call. That's
good point.
Those kind of things aren't very useful to you when you're trying to close out the game if you don't have the mana to cast them. But if you can pitch it to this and exile their blocker and get in for lethal, you're feeling pretty good about yourself.
That's true. Or even let's say you have like a Legion Angel in your hand and you're just like looking at your lands and the shape of your hand and you're like,
good one.
Boy, I'm not going to cast this anytime soon.
Good one. Or a lesson you learned. Yeah.
Oh, I like the way you think, CGB. That's a wombo combo right there. So yeah, this card, and another thing, like you could just get freaking got with this card. There's gotcha potential written all over this, right? Like your opponent has 1 white mana up and you slam like your 6 cost big flashy thing or whatever, and your opponent just exiles like a bunch of cards from their hand and gets rid of it. Yeah, I like it. I like it, and I might actually end up hating it.
Yeah, I think this will catch some people by surprise. I think it's a good closer. Might be a really good closer.
All right. So do you want to take us into the next one in this cycle?
I'll try to. We don't have the full translation yet.
Yeah.
It's called Joyful Procession, but it's clearly part of the cycle. So I am tentatively calling it the March of Otherworldly Joy. And
love it.
It's the red one. It's red and an X for an instant at rare. You may... the same kind of exile thing. You may exile red cards from your hand to reduce the cost by 2 for each exiled card. And it says exile the top X cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play up to 2 of those cards. So at first you read it as kind of light up the stage at home, but then maybe it comes to your mind that if you it's late game and you have a ton of mana and on the opponent's end step, you want to put like 5 or 6 mana into this, you can. Or you can play it early in the game and just exile a card that's not useful or a spike field hazard or a lesson like we talked about to make it be literal light up the stage. You can do that too. What do you think?
This to me reads as a combo card. This is like imagine playing this in like a Bergy deck or something. That's kind of what it makes me think of.
Okay.
In the kind of decks where like you just really need to go through your deck and like find the right stuff, right? Or maybe like a deck that manages to make a ton of mana on one turn. So in any deck which is like making a ton of mana and drawing a bunch of cards and just trying to like chew through your deck and get something done, this is going to be a really cool card for that. So let's think about this, right? How does this stack up? You pay 1 red mana, you exile another card in your hand, and you get an X equals 2, right? So that's like a 2 for 2. But if you exile another card in your hand, then you get access to look at 4 cards, right?
For 1 red mana.
Yeah, so it scales from there. So if you have the ability to play a bunch of cards at once.
Well, no, you can only play 2.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it's really, so I like it best for trying to find combo pieces, basically.
I don't know. I think Burn is still going to want to, get their velocity, get just enough burn spells. And when you think about digging for burn spells, the idea of late in the game just casting this for like X equals 5 or X equals 6 and going 6 deep and trying to find 2 lightning bolts because you put them there with that silly hasty alchemy guy, it seems like it would actually work out a good amount of the time that you could get what you need.
Yeah, and anything that cares about your storm count is going to be really happy to see this card.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, actually, the more I think about it, like play this card in a Bergy deck and just go off. It's going to feel really fun. Cool. How about Tatsunari?
No, I'm going to read it because you got it. You have to do the one after it.
Okay.
I'm not reading that.
Okay. Well, I'll bring it up right now and get prepared.
I'm going to read Tatsunari Toad Rider, which is 2 and a black for a legendary human ninja at rare. It's a 3/3. And whenever you cast an enchantment spell, if you don't control a creature named Kimi, create Kimi, a legendary 3/3 black and green frog creature token. With the ability, whenever you cast an enchantment spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. For 1 and a hybrid green-blue, for whatever reason, Tatsunari Toad Rider and target frog you control can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with flying or reach. And I brought this up because as long as you have an enchantment, and there seem to be a lot in this set, including enchantment creatures, as long as you have an enchantment to follow up the Toad Rider, you get that 3/3, and that's a lot of output for a 3-mana card. And a lot of abilities, and it's evasive. It's kind of a bit of value there.
So this is actually kind of terrifying, right? So you play this on 3.
Yes.
On 4, you play like any of the 2-mana sagas.
Any enchantment, yeah.
And then if you have access to green or blue mana, you can just crack for 6, right?
Yeah. And,
am I reading that correctly?
And your frog has that ability that any more enchantments you play, the opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. If you play the life of Umazawa, you can give it +2/+2 as well.
So you could just kind of like solo your opponent with unblockable
The frog doesn't have haste.
Yeah, it doesn't have haste. Right. That's true. So you couldn't do it the following turn. But like, yeah, I mean...
Oh, and if the frog dies, so like say that you crack with the frog, you crack with the Toad Rider. If the frog that you created that turn gets into combat like as a blocker and dies, the next enchantment you play will make a new frog.
Just get another one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, apart from the fact that it's like a 3/3 for 3 that doesn't do anything when it hits the battlefield, you're right. Like this card is full of possibility, plenty of value. And I mean, crap, even if you don't have a frog, just having a 3/3 that you can make unblockable that can end games pretty fast by itself.
It's a thing. This is it's kind of a meme card, and it requires kind of a mid-range format that shapes up an interesting way where maybe the opponent can't remove this as easily as they'd like to, or your enchantments are so cheap that playing this and an enchantment the same turn makes sense. Like this and Akaya's ghost form sound particularly fun to me if they reprint something like that.
Dude, flash enchantments are sweet with this.
There you go. And I was also just going to say this is kind of an interesting Sultai commander because of that hybrid cost in the activate ability that seems really random. But if you haven't Sultai commandered in a minute and you want to be a Toad Rider, like this is kind of cool.
Yeah, and if you have any kind of like it's cast. Okay, so if you have any kind of way to like cascade off and cast a bunch of enchantment spells, I don't know, some weird combo.
I think Gitrog Monster is also a frog horse, so you can make it unblockable. Or semi-unblockable.
We're really doing it. So yeah, I mean, very flavorful card. It's also just one of the weirdest Magic cards ever printed, so you got to give it props for that. I mean, come on.
I hope it's a representative of the flavor of the set to come. It's just kind of a little bit silly, but a little bit good and a little bit scary all at the same time.
Yeah, and these are the kind of cards that like someone out there is just going to fall desperately in love with Tatsunari and like build a commander deck and foil it all out, and their life is going to be complete because this card was printed. So, which is really what we're going for in Magic. So A+ for that flavor. And someone else is going to feel completed by this next card, which CGB would have felt too ashamed to read on the podcast. So nope. I'm going to go ahead and read it. Go Shintai of Shared Purpose. Go Shintai yourself, CovertGoBlue.
I'm going to shint all over you and this card.
This card does have a lot of shint in it, doesn't it? It's a legendary enchantment creature, Shrine, which is interesting. It's at uncommon. It's a 1/3 Vigilance. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 colorless mana. If you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token for each shrine you control. So the main reason I wanted to read this is just that it's a shrine creature. So for all of you shrine gamers, you now have another shrine to put in your shrine deck.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the tweet.
That's the tweet. Okay. Yeah. So, yay. Shrines are alive. They're alive, guys.
This is what I'm asking, though. Does this mean that Shrine is now a creature type?
I think it does. So you can name it with your unclaimed territory card and your vanquishing banner and
metallic mimic and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it, Arjuna. I hate shrines.
This gets added to the list for like Witch's Vengeance and stuff. So now you can name Shrine. So anyway, I don't expect a lot of these to hit the battlefield, but it's interesting.
I think that they took away the coolest thing about Shrines, which is that you got the free trigger every turn. That was what the promise of Shrines. And this, you have to pay for it. You have to pay for it. It's a pretty good
payoff, though. You get a bunch of free creatures.
A bunch? It's a 4 mana 1/3. And if you pay 5 mana, then you get a 1/1 on its own. And if you've been playing Shrines every turn for the entire game, you get like 3 or 4 1/1s. You paid 4 mana for this. That's not a payoff to me. I'm not impressed.
Getting like 3 to 5 1/1s for 1 mana every turn
should have been free.
CGB's not.
It should have been free.
The card is bad enough that I agree. I think, I don't know, maybe there's like reasonable Shrines deck in the limited format, and they didn't want this to be like absolutely busted in that. So, and
bust limited, nobody cares. Just bust it.
No one cares about that little format. Yeah. All right. I mean, he's safe making that quip on this particular podcast, but tread carefully, CGB. Tread carefully. There are some ninjas out there who might not take very well to your comments. One thing that I'm kind of excited about is that all signs point to this being a rainbow deck. I mean, sorry, not deck format, right? Like set is what I'm trying to say. So they're really pushing rainbow themes hard. Like there's going to be obviously 1 creature shrine of each color here. They have all this different stuff. And so A of all, I'm hoping it's going to be a really satisfying limited format where you can just play all of this crap, right? CGB's waiting for it. He's waiting for it. And B of all, it means that like maybe we're going to get like some sweet lands that make a lot of different colors of mana. Maybe we're going to be able to play some really fun multicolor archetypes in Constructed. So I really hope that it delivers on the promise of that, because it's been a while since we've had one of these like just go nuts, make a bunch of different colors of mana kind of sets, right? I think the last one was Ikoria, if I'm getting it right.
And what's the next set after this one? It's the tricolor themed set, Streets of New Caperna, where people were already expecting the friendly colored triomes to make an appearance.
So, yeah, we could be entering a time when 3-color decks are just like normal in the format. And if that were the case, that would be good for everyone, in my opinion. So I feel like there's a lot of good stuff being signposted in this set. And overall, for me, like as a flavor wise, it's an A+. Play mechanics wise, there's a lot of super powerful stuff with none of it looking like gut wrenchingly busted.
Yeah.
So overall, what I'm seeing CGB is what just looks like a very fun and very interesting Magic set coming up.
Yeah, well, I think that what we need is a new cranial extraction, which was in the original Kamigawa, so that a card like Hullbreaker Horror or another Allrun's Epiphany type thing doesn't completely dominate and put a cap on everything that tries to be mid-range, and then we'll be good. I think we'll have an interesting format for sure.
Just ban Galvanic Iteration, and then we can all have fun, except for CovertGoBlue. All right. All right. Well, thanks for sticking with us through that Crafties. That was very fun. And next week, I don't think we're going to be doing card reviews, but the week after that might be the complete set review. Am I right about that?
I think, or it might already, gosh, I have to actually check. It might be all out because it's going to come out on April 10th. Like, that's when the set releases.
February?
I keep saying it. Why do I say April? I keep doing that. February 10th.
So we have a special guest for next week's show. So we won't be doing the full spoiler thing. But I think the set after that will be the complete review. So let's look forward to that. And in the meantime, you can find us on Spotify. You can find us in all of the usual podcasty places. You can also watch this on CovertGoBlue's YouTube channel, which is back in business, baby. He's back and better than ever. You can catch CovertGoBlue streaming live regularly on Twitch. You can catch me streaming sporadically on Twitch. And of course, we also have a Patreon. So anyone who is enjoying the content, feel free to stop by and start supporting us for as little as $2.99 USD every single month. We really appreciate that. Finally, wanted to shout out our Discord, which is a cool place where famous people hang out and you can rub elbows with them. So go and find out what I'm talking about. All right, CGB, until next time, unless there is no next time, because you've turned into a ninja, I salute you.
Later, crafties. Kiri.
Along the road that I had traveled. All right.